2024 Lotus Emira, and today I'm going to show you why this is the best sports car for $100,000. Now before we get into the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more of these reviews. And without further ado, let's get to it. So the Emira was first introduced in 2024 as the successor to the Lotus Evora, which I actually have another review video that I did on the Evora. If you want to see how those two compare, you can go find that on my channel. But this is really the brand new sports car in the Lotus lineup. Right here we actually have the V6 model. All Lotus Emiras right now are first edition, so you can actually see a couple different first edition little plaques and badges around the car. But there's really two trims of the Emira. There's the V6 here, and then you also have an inline 4. The V6 comes in a manual or an automatic, but if you get the inline 4, you have to get the automatic, which is an 8-speed dual clutch gearbox derived from the Mercedes AMG plant. But right here, the V6 and the manual is really the same exact engine and plant and gearbox that you get from the Evora. But really the main idea with the Emira here is that you're getting a remodeled exterior, an updated interior, and you're just getting a much more modern car overall. But underneath it, underneath the skin and underneath the flash, you're really getting the same car that you got from the Evora, which a lot of people kind of look down upon. But it is an enthusiast car, and you don't get a lot of cars like these today. So most people are probably going to want to go with the V6 and the manual, just like we have here today. So moving on to the front end is the overall design on the Emira. This is a really big upgrade over the Evora, in my opinion. It's just so much more sleek, so much more modern and sporty. You can see right here we have these air intakes on the side, which are probably the most iconic design on the Emira compared to the Evora. They're actually very functional. They go right through, straight to the radiators. Underneath here, okay, we have a mesh grille, which is nice, so you don't get a bunch of big debris that can go underneath your car. I know on the 992, 911s, they do not have a mesh grille like this, so you can have a big rock or something puncture a radiator, but it's nice that Lotus gives you that mesh grille right there. And then if you look underneath here on the splitter and some of the intakes right here, you can see that they're actually gloss black. This is because this car is fit with the black pack, which is the full black pack, which I believe is $1,400 to option it on the car. And you basically get black on the front splitter, some of the little intakes, and also on the top of the car and your mirrors as well. And just overall, the front end is a massive upgrade. In my opinion, over the Evora, it just looks so much more modern and sleek and cool and sporty. So just another thing before we move on to the rest of the car, I just want to talk about the frunk. Okay, most mid-engine cars like this Emira here have a frunk to add more space to the car, but this car does not. The front end and the frunk is actually all for the radiators. You can't even open it easily. You have to get a bunch of tools and things and read the Lotus service manual to open the frunk. So that is kind of a gripe. That's not a practical thing about the Emira. So if you're looking at this car and you want a frunk in the car, you're not going to get it. There's no storage here, and you probably can't even open it without a service manual. So moving on to the side of the Emira, this is probably one of my favorite angles on the whole entire car. You just get all these really cool sleek lines that flow through from the front to the rear end of the car. And then also right here, you get a lot of black pack. So if you get the full black pack, you're gonna get these black mirrors right here. You're also gonna get a black roof right here. On the bottom, you get some black side skirts right here. And then moving towards the rear end of the car, you also get this Emira First Edition logo, which actually has some carbon fiber print on it. It's not a huge deal. It's just to let everyone know that you have the First Edition. And then moving on to the air intake right here, this is also part of the black pack. And this air intake is functional. This is another thing that I like about the Emira, is that a lot of the vents and stuff that they add onto the car are super functional. They work, and this thing just feeds air directly to the engine. And it's part of the the black pack, and overall this side of the car just looks really, really cool. And then also right here you get some new handles compared to the Evora. I think the Evora has had pretty regular handles. On the Emira here, however, you get these handles that you kind of have to press in. They pop out, and then you pull it like that to open the door. They're cool. They're a little bit gimmicky, but it is a change compared to the Evora. So moving on to the wheels now. Okay, these are 20-inch wheels. You actually get the same size front and rear, 20-inch. These are the gloss black wheels. There's only 3 different wheel options you can get on the Emira. You get the gloss black, the silver, and then you get the diamond coat wheels, which is kind of a mix between the two. I think it looks really good on this color with this blue right here. The calipers, you can get 4 different colors. You can get black, silver, red, or yellow. I personally think the yellow matches well with the black and the blue. But overall, the wheels look good, they look sleek, but there isn't really much else to talk about other than the rotors right here. They're called J-slotted rotors. You can see there's a little divot right there in the rotors. A little bit different, but the car stops very well. The brakes are really good. And overall, I think the wheels just look really cool. Moving on to the rear end of the car, I think I really like the simple look of it. It's not, over-designed. There's not too much lettering or stuff going on. It's really simple. You just have a nice little Lotus badge right here. You have these nice sleek tail lights. You also can see the engine through the glass right here. There is tint on this engine bay, but you can option it without the tint, so you can see the full engine on it. It looks really cool. Underneath here, you actually get a completely open vent right here to obviously help with cooling and airflow on to the engine bay of the car. Now, on the bottom here, on the diffuser area and the exhaust area, you get this nice gloss black package, which, like I said earlier, you get a bunch of gloss black stuff if you get the full gloss black package. And then you also get these dual tip exhaust, which the car sounds really good, as we've seen on the Evora. You get the supercharged engine V6 right here that makes 400 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque. It's really, really loud. It sounds good. And overall, I just think the rear end of the car looks really sleek, really modern, and is definitely an upgrade over the Evora. So now we're going to move to the interior of the car. I just wanted to show you just how beautiful this interior looks. This, in my opinion, is the biggest single upgrade that you're going to get over the Evora. It's just so much more modern. I mean, it doesn't even look like the same car as the Evora. You get all this new tech and, heated and electric seats that you did not get in the Evora. The steering wheel, the touch screens, everything is just upgraded in this car. It looks really beautiful. Now, just to keep in mind that you can get two really main options on the interior. You can either get a completely leather interior, or you can get a leather and Alcantara. Right here, as you can see, we get the Alcantara. You get some Alcantara right here on the armrest with the yellow stitching, which I think looks really good with the Seneca blue. But then you also get some leather on the top here, and it just flows so well. You get the Alcantara seats as well if you want, mixed half and half with Alcantara and leather. You get a nice little Lotus badge right here. The seats are really comfortable. They are 12-way adjustable seats with lumbar support and heated seating. You can also get a Alcantara or leather steering wheel if you want. I prefer the Alcantara. This is a sports car, it's a Lotus. I personally think it just looks better with the Alcantara. So moving on to the gauge cluster right here, you can see that this is another big upgrade over the Evora. You get this digital tachometer and display right here. It looks really cool, it's really sleek. It's not overbearing, you're not given too much information, but you also can scroll through different information if you want. So for example, if you go on the steering wheel here, you can actually press the buttons or use your thumb and slide up like a little touchpad here. And if you see, you just swap through all the different settings. So, you have stuff like your different gauges, like your power, your torque, your boost. Okay, you can use your lap timer, which I'll talk about later. You get tire pressures, trip information, your map, music, your phone, etc. And you can also swipe to the right on some of these things. So, you can go to like destinations and different things like that. You get your tire pressure, you can swipe right to, when your service is due or warning messages and stuff like that. It just looks really, really smooth. And then as you rev up on the car, you can see that the little, gauge cluster right here starts to rev up, shows your RPMs. On the right here, you get your gear that you're in. We're in neutral right now. Like I said, this is the manual gearbox, which in my opinion is the car to get in this Emira. But you can see right here, we're in neutral. And then on the left side, it's just showing how fast you're going. You get your, little gas tank gauge, your oil coolant temperatures right here. Overall, it's simple and it's nice, but it's definitely, an upgrade over the Evora, which had a kind of prehistoric, analog gauge cluster on it. This looks really smooth and good. Now moving on to the infotainment system, this is probably the biggest upgrade that you're going to get on the interior, or at least one of the biggest upgrades you're going to get over the Evora. It's just so smooth, so responsive. It's really easy to see everything. You just go here to go to your home screen. It has pretty much all the stuff that is on your tachometer, but this is just kind of the infotainment version of it. Now you can see Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is nice to have, and it's wireless, so you don't have to worry about using a plug or anything like that. Right here you also get the air conditioning, which you can control either via buttons right here, or you can actually use the touchscreen right here. Another cool little feature is you get a little race car guy right here. Not only on the digital screen, but you also get it on the button right here, which just is kind of Lotus's version of saying, hey, this is a sports car, you're kind of like a race car driver. It's just kind of a gimmick, but it does look really cool, and it's just a small attention to detail that I like. So moving on to the center console area right here, first of all, the first thing you're going to notice is this beautiful aluminum knob shifter for the manual gearbox. It has 6 gears. The reverse is actually on the far left, so to reverse it, you push all the way over to the left and you move it up, and that puts you into reverse. You get a nice little leather base right here. Now, another cool thing about the center console is the start and stop button. This is actually really similar to Lamborghini's. It almost looks like a spaceship, starship, you know, airplane, whatever you want to call it. Basically, to do it, you flip this little red switch up, and then you press the start and stop button, and then the engine turns on. It's pretty cool. It looks really cool, and then it automatically comes back down when you let it go. Now, in terms of the space in the cup holders, they are definitely big enough to fit, you know, the normal drinks that you're gonna have. You get 2 in the center right here, and then underneath here, you get in the armrest space. Underneath it, you get a USB-C and a USB charger. And then in addition to that, you also get another USB charger underneath here, underneath the gearbox, and then you also actually can see the gearbox while it's in motion right there, which is really cool. They get an exposed gear linkage, which no other car I've seen in this era actually has something like that for the manual gearbox. And then in addition to the trunk space that you get right here, you also get a little bit more space in the back, because remember, the Evora actually did have rear seats. In the Emira, you no longer have the rear seats, but you do get some space back here. You can definitely fit, you know, a couple backpacks or, you know, some goods in the back here. It's not a ton of space, but once again, you still get a little bit extra storage space to make up for that lack of a frunk that you don't have in the front end of the car. All right, so driving the Emira, I'm just gonna put it straight into race mode. There's actually 3 different modes that you can drive in. You have normal, you have sport mode, and then you have your race mode. Race mode is gonna give you the full exhaust, the full sound, the full sport suspension, which, by the way, this car has the sport suspension. There's 2 suspension options. You can get the touring or the sport. I think sport's better. This is a sports car. You're probably gonna wanna track it and drive on the back roads. The suspension in the sport mode is not bad. It's not too stiff. It's actually quite comfortable. It is more comfortable than the Evora was, so I would highly recommend you get the sport suspension. I think you're really missing out on a lot of the performance of the car if you don't get the sport suspension. Now, in this video, I'm going to be following some of my friends, so if you see a BMW in front of me, don't mind them. I am following them. But overall, okay, first couple of things that I noticed about this car, okay, compared to the Evora, is that the steering, it feels a bit more electronic than the Evora. The Evora felt really, really hydraulic. Now, I know this is still hydraulic steering, but it just feels a bit more electric. It feels more kind of like a McLaren steering almost. And yes, I know McLarens are hydraulic steering, but they don't feel as hydraulic as the Evora. So this is definitely more McLaren feeling, but it is precise and it is direct. And I do really like the way that it feels. It transfers the weight well. It's easy to predict where it's going. It feels just a bit more modernized. It's a bit more updated and modernized than the Evora, but it still shares a lot of the same things. That engine screaming behind me is so similar to the Evora, which makes sense because it is the same engine. And it's just, you're getting all this modern tech and all these features with just a slightly different steering feel. And overall, it feels really good. You know, it definitely feels like a little bit of an upgrade from a driving perspective. Now the gearbox, what I will say is this, is that the gearbox actually feels quite a bit smoother and easy to shift. And you can see the BMW popping in front of me, just ignore that. But the gearbox on this Emira actually feels quite a bit better and smoother and more robust than the Evora. The Evora, in my opinion, it had this weird gearbox where like it wouldn't want to shift in the second and downshifting was a problem. This actually feels like it, you know, you can actually use all the gears. All the gears are usable, which is amazing, because in the Evora, that first to second gear shift was always a problem. And it seems like Lotus has finally just fine-tuned it just a little bit It's not perfect right now, but it is a lot better than it used to be. So, you know, if you're performance driving during track days, you're gonna have a lot easier time shifting and actually maximizing the performance of this car because the gearbox is just a lot smoother. All right, I'm gonna get on it a little bit right here. In terms of the horsepower, the Emira is just pretty much the same as the Evora. In fact, I actually think it has a bit less horsepower than the Evora GT had. This only has 400. The Evora GT had 416. You can actually kind of feel a slight decrease in the horsepower. I feel like there's not as much of that like initial bite to the throttle on the Emira, which is a little bit disappointing, but it kind of makes sense considering that you don't, you know, have as much horsepower. But the feeling of the car in terms of being an enthusiast car, okay, the way it handles, the way it sounds, the way it feels, I think for somebody who likes Lotus in general, somebody who likes this enthusiast car, this is still that. It gives you all of the good things about the Evora, but then none of the bad things, right? I mean, I think the reason why the Evora didn't maybe do as well as I would have hoped is because it just lacked a lot of the tech. If you look around this interior, this is like a brand new car. It looks really, really sexy. Every time you take this out, everyone's looking at it. A lot of people don't even know what it is because they don't even know what Lotus is. But the Emira really just fixes all of the main issues with the Evora, which was it was dated, it was unreliable, it just was kind of missing. It didn't feel like it was from this era. Now with the Emira, you have all of the good things plus all of you know, the things that needed to be fixed. So, and I think at around $105,000, you're not getting anything else like this. Nobody else makes a car that is this quality and this sound and this feeling and the engagement with the manual gearbox. Nobody else is doing it. So I think that Lotus is kind of in this niche market that I think is getting more and more popular. I think if you would have told people 10, 15 years ago that a car was an amazing deal because it was loud and had a manual gearbox, nobody would have really cared because a lot of cars you could get in a manual gearbox and a lot of cars were loud. Nowadays with the electrification, all the regulations, that's getting hard to come by. And Lotus has still stayed true to their values. In addition to that, I think this car is going to hold its value extremely well. The main reason being because Lotus is going fully electric after the Emira, which is sad. I hope they don't. I hope they change their mind. But once again, this is the last of this generation. There's not going to be another one of these. So I think especially a first edition car, manual V6, they are getting rid of the manual after a couple of years, which once again, I don't know why they're doing that, but they are. So I think if you get the manual V6 and you hold it, it's going to probably not depreciate as much as a lot of the other cars in this market.